The desert sun blazed mercilessly over the military training compound as Sergeant Maya Rodriguez adjusted her grip on the Barrett M82 sniper rifle. Sweat dripped down her forehead, but her hands remained steady as stone. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. The annual inter-service marksmanship competition where the best shooters from all military branches gathered to prove their worth. Maya had earned her place here through countless hours of practice and an almost supernatural ability to read wind patterns and calculate bullet drop. Growing up in rural Montana, she had learned to shoot before she could properly ride a bicycle. Her grandfather, a World War II veteran, had taught her that a weapon was not just a tool, but an extension of oneself. Respect your rifle, and it will respect you back, he would say during their hunting trips in the mountains. Now, at 26, Maya had built a reputation as one of the most accurate shooters in the Marine Corps. Her record spoke for itself. 47 confirmed long-range hits during her 2 tours in Afghanistan, each one potentially saving the lives of her fellow soldiers. The Barrett rifle she carried had been with her through every deployment, every training exercise, and every sleepless night when nightmares of war kept her awake. The competition grounds buzzed with activity as representatives from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines prepared their equipment. Maya noticed the way some of the male competitors glanced in her direction, their expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. She had grown accustomed to being the only woman in many military settings, but it never stopped stinging when she felt their doubt. Admiral Harrison Blake stood near the command tent, his chest heavy with ribbons and his demeanor radiating authority. At 52, he was a decorated naval officer who had climbed the ranks through a combination of political savvy and genuine military achievement. However, his old-school mentality often clashed with the changing face of the modern military, particularly when it came to women in combat roles. Maya methodically cleaned her rifle barrel and checked her scope alignment. Each movement was deliberate and practiced, a ritual that calmed her mind before any shooting event. The Barrett's weight of 30 pounds felt natural in her arms, like holding a familiar friend. She had customized the weapon with specific adjustments that suited her shooting style. A modified trigger pull, specialized grip, and a scope she had personally zeroed during hundreds of practice sessions. As she prepared her shooting mat and arranged her ammunition, Maya overheard conversations from nearby competitors discussing her presence. Some spoke with respect, having heard of her combat record. Others whispered doubts about whether women belonged in such competitions. She blocked out the noise and focused on her breathing exercises, knowing that mental preparation was just as important as physical skill. The first day of competition would test fundamental marksmanship skills at various distances. Maya knew she excelled in these conditions, but she also understood that reputation meant nothing once the actual shooting began. Every competitor here had earned their place through exceptional skill, and underestimating anyone could be a costly mistake. A young Army specialist approached her station, introducing himself as Marcus Chen. He had heard about her reputation and expressed genuine admiration for her service record. Their conversation revealed that Marcus had also grown up hunting with family members and shared her deep respect for firearms safety and precision. It was refreshing for Maya to meet someone who saw her as a fellow marksman rather than an anomaly. As the afternoon sun began to shift, casting longer shadows across the range, Maya felt the familiar pre-competition mixture of excitement and nervous energy. She had trained for months specifically for this event, adjusting her diet, exercise routine, and sleep schedule to ensure peak performance. Her commanding officer had given her special permission to attend, recognizing that her success here could bring positive attention to their unit. The Barrett rifle lay beside her, its dark metal surface reflecting the desert landscape. Maya ran her fingers along the barrel, feeling the slight imperfections that told the story of their shared experiences in combat zones. This weapon had been her constant companion through the most dangerous moments of her military career, and she trusted it completely. Other competitors continued setting up their equipment, creating a diverse array of weapons and shooting styles. Maya observed their preparations with professional interest, noting different approaches to rifle setup and ammunition selection. She particularly watched an Air Force sergeant who had an unconventional but apparently effective method of scope adjustment. The evening briefing would outline the specific challenges for the following day's competition. Maya anticipated that wind conditions might be tricky, as desert thermals could create unpredictable air currents that would test even experienced shooters. She made mental notes about the terrain features that might affect her shooting positions and began formulating strategies for different scenarios. As darkness approached, Maya felt confident in her preparation, but remained aware that tomorrow would bring new challenges. She carefully secured her equipment and headed to the temporary barracks, knowing that proper rest would be crucial for maintaining the steady hands and clear mind that precision shooting demanded. The real test was about to begin. Dawn broke across the desert range with a crisp clarity that made Maya smile. Perfect shooting weather meant minimal wind and excellent visibility. She had risen early to perform her morning routine, light stretching exercises followed by meditation techniques her grandfather had taught her. The other competitors were beginning to stir in the barracks, but Maya preferred these quiet moments before the intensity of competition began. The first event challenged shooters to engage targets at 600 meters using iron sights only. Maya appreciated this old-school approach that tested fundamental marksmanship without technological assistance. She settled into her prone position, feeling the familiar pressure of the rifle stock against her shoulder. Her breathing slowed to a steady rhythm as she aligned her sights with the first target. The Barrett's report echoed across the desert as Maya fired her first round. Through her scope, she watched the bullet strike dead center in the target's bullseye. A small smile crossed her lips as she worked the bolt action and prepared for the next shot. Around her, other competitors fired their weapons, creating a symphony of different calibers and firing rates. Admiral Blake watched from the observation area, his expression unreadable as he studied Maya's performance through binoculars. He had heard about this Marine sergeant and her supposed expertise, but remained skeptical about women in combat roles. In his experience, the physical and mental demands of warfare required capabilities that he believed women simply did not possess. Maya continued her string of shots with mechanical precision. Each bullet found its mark with consistency that impressed even the experienced range officers. By the end of the first event, she had achieved a perfect score, matching only 2 other competitors out of the 30 participants. Her confidence grew, but she remained focused on the challenges ahead. The second event introduced moving targets at various distances. Maya had extensive experience with this type of shooting from her combat deployments, where enemy fighters rarely remained stationary. She calculated lead times and adjusted her aim point based on target speed and distance. Her shots continued to find their marks with remarkable accuracy. During a break between events, Maya overheard Admiral Blake speaking with other officers about the competition. His words carried clear skepticism about her performance, suggesting that range shooting differed significantly from real combat situations. The comments stung, but Maya channeled her frustration into determination to prove herself through results rather than arguments. Marcus Chen approached during the lunch break, excited about Maya's dominant performance. He mentioned that several competitors had begun discussing her shooting technique and trying to understand her methods. Maya appreciated his enthusiasm, but remained focused on maintaining her mental edge for the afternoon events. The third challenge tested shooters' ability to engage multiple targets rapidly while maintaining accuracy. Maya's combat experience proved invaluable as she smoothly transitioned between targets, working the Barrett's bolt action with fluid efficiency. Her muscle memory from countless training sessions and real-world situations guided each movement without conscious thought. Admiral Blake found himself grudgingly impressed by Maya's consistent performance, though he remained convinced that combat conditions would reveal different results. He had commanded naval vessels in several conflicts and believed that the chaos and pressure of actual warfare separated truly capable soldiers from mere range shooters. As the afternoon wore on, Maya maintained her lead in the overall standings. Other competitors began studying her shooting positions and techniques, recognizing superior skill when they witnessed it. The Army specialist who had initially dominated the iron sight event found himself trailing Maya's consistent precision across multiple disciplines. The fourth event introduced environmental challenges designed to simulate combat conditions. Smoke obscured targets, wind flags indicated changing air currents, and time pressure forced rapid decision-making. Maya drew upon her deployment experiences, remembering similar situations where quick thinking and steady nerves had meant the difference between mission success and failure. Her grandfather's training echoed in her mind as she adapted to each challenge. He had always emphasized that true marksmanship required more than just accurate shooting. It demanded the ability to perform under stress, adapt to changing conditions, and maintain focus despite distractions. These lessons served Maya well as she navigated the increasingly difficult scenarios. By the end of the day, Maya held a commanding lead in the competition standings. Her consistent performance across diverse challenges had impressed judges and competitors alike. However, she remained aware that 2 more days of competition lay ahead, and maintaining this level of performance would require continued focus and preparation. Admiral Blake found himself reconsidering his initial assumptions about Maya's capabilities. While he still harbored doubts about women in combat, her performance suggested a level of skill that transcended gender considerations. He decided to observe her more closely during the remaining competition days. As evening approached, Maya carefully cleaned and maintained her Barrett rifle. The weapon had performed flawlessly throughout the day, delivering precision that matched her shooting skills. She felt grateful for the countless hours of practice that had prepared her for this moment and looked forward to the challenges that tomorrow would bring. The other competitors showed her increased respect, as word spread about her perfect scores in multiple events. Maya remained humble but confident, knowing that her performance spoke louder than any words could. She was proving that skill and dedication mattered more than preconceptions or stereotypes. The second day of competition brought new challenges and increased pressure, as the field of competitors narrowed from 30 to 15 shooters. Maya woke before dawn, feeling the weight of expectations but maintaining her calm focus. Her consistent performance had caught the attention of military, brass and media representatives covering the event. Morning preparations revealed subtle changes in wind patterns that would affect long-range shooting. Maya studied the range flags and made mental calculations about air currents, while other competitors struggled to adjust their techniques. Her years of hunting in Montana's unpredictable mountain weather had taught her to read environmental conditions instinctively. The fifth event tested precision at extreme ranges, targets placed at 1,000 meters that pushed both weapon capabilities and shooter skills to their limits. Maya settled into her shooting position and began her breathing routine. The Barrett M82 was specifically designed for such distances, and her countless hours of practice had prepared her for this moment. Admiral Blake positioned himself closer to the firing line, ostensibly to better observe the competition, but actually drawn by curiosity about Maya's continued dominance. He watched through high-powered binoculars as she made minute adjustments to her scope and calculated environmental factors that would affect bullet trajectory. Maya's first shot at the extreme range struck the target's outer ring, a respectable hit that many competitors would celebrate. However, she frowned slightly, recognizing that her usual precision had been affected by factors she had not fully accounted for. She made subtle adjustments to her scope and firing position before taking her second shot. The bullet's impact created a small puff of dust directly in the target's center ring. Maya had successfully corrected her initial miscalculation and demonstrated the adaptability that separated exceptional marksmen from merely good ones. Around her, other competitors struggled with the challenging conditions, some missing targets entirely. During a brief break, Admiral Blake approached Maya's shooting position. His initial intention was simply to examine her equipment setup, but he found himself drawn to the Barrett rifle's impressive specifications. The weapon represented the pinnacle of sniper rifle technology, and Blake's military background gave him appreciation for such precision instruments. Maya had stepped away to hydrate and review her notes on wind conditions. When she returned, she discovered Admiral Blake examining her rifle, his hands exploring the weapon's mechanism and adjustments. Her reaction was immediate and instinctive, the protective response of a warrior who had learned never to allow unauthorized personnel to handle her primary weapon. "Admiral, please don't touch my rifle," Maya said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to weapon safety protocols. She approached quickly, her expression serious but respectful. The Barrett represented more than equipment to her. It was a carefully calibrated instrument that could mean the difference between mission success and failure. Blake looked up, surprised by her direct challenge to his actions. As a high-ranking officer, he was unaccustomed to being corrected by enlisted personnel regardless of the circumstances. His expression darkened as he processed what he perceived as insubordination. from a subordinate who should have shown deference to his rank. "Sergeant, I believe you're forgetting who you're addressing," Blake responded coldly. His tone carried the implied threat of military discipline, suggesting that Maya's concern for her weapon was less important than showing proper respect for his position. The surrounding area grew quiet as other competitors sensed growing tension. Maya maintained her composure despite feeling her anger rise. She had witnessed too many instances where unfamiliarity with specific weapons had led to accidents or equipment damage. Her Barrett rifle had been precisely zeroed for her shooting style, and any adjustments or mishandling could affect its accuracy during the remaining competition events. "With respect, Admiral, this weapon is calibrated specifically for my use," Maya explained, her voice steady but firm. "Any adjustments or handling by unfamiliar personnel could affect its performance during competition. Military protocol requires that personal weapons remain under the control of their assigned operators." Blake's face flushed with anger at what he perceived as continued defiance from an enlisted Marine. He had not expected such resistance to his examination of the weapon, particularly from a woman who should have recognized his authority. The confrontation was drawing attention from other competitors and range officials. The range safety officer approached the situation, recognizing the potential for escalation between the Admiral and Maya. Military competitions required strict adherence to weapon safety protocols, and unauthorized handling of competitors' firearms violated established procedures. However, the political implications of correcting a high-ranking officer created a delicate situation. Maya remained positioned protectively near her rifle, not backing down despite the obvious disparity in military rank. Her combat experience had taught her that certain principles could not be compromised, regardless of consequences. Weapon security and safety protocols existed to protect lives and ensure mission success. Other competitors watched the confrontation with growing interest and concern. Many recognized the validity of Maya's position, while understanding the dangerous political implications of challenging an admiral's authority. The situation threatened to overshadow the competition and create lasting consequences for everyone involved. Admiral Blake found himself in an unexpected position. His initial curiosity about the Barrett rifle had evolved into a direct challenge to his authority from an enlisted soldier. Military protocol demanded that he assert his position, but the public nature of the confrontation and the presence of other service branches complicated his options. The tension continued to build as neither Maya nor Admiral Blake appeared willing to back down from their positions. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test both military protocol and personal principles in ways that neither participant had anticipated. The confrontation reached a critical point as Admiral Blake's face reddened with indignation. He had served in the military for over 3 decades and was not accustomed to having his authority questioned, especially by an enlisted Marine sergeant. The public nature of their disagreement made backing down feel like a loss of face in front of multiple service branches. "Sergeant Rodriguez, you will stand down and show proper respect for your superiors," Blake commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of his rank. He gestured toward the Barrett rifle, making his intentions clear that he would examine the weapon regardless of Maya's objections. The surrounding crowd of competitors and officials grew larger as word spread about the unusual confrontation. Maya felt her jaw clench as she processed the Admiral's direct order. Every fiber of her military training urged her to comply with the command of a superior officer, but her combat experience and weapon safety knowledge created an equally strong conviction that protecting her rifle was the right choice. The Barrett had been with her through life-threatening situations, and its precise calibration could mean the difference between winning and losing the competition. "Admiral, I understand your rank and authority," Maya replied, her voice remaining steady despite the internal storm of conflicting emotions. "However, competition regulations clearly state that personal weapons must remain under the exclusive control of their assigned operators. Any unauthorized handling could result in disqualification from the event." The range safety officer stepped forward, attempting to defuse the situation before it escalated further. Captain Morrison had overseen military shooting competitions for 15 years and recognized that both parties had valid concerns. However, the clash between military hierarchy and competition rules created a complex situation without easy resolution. Blake's patience finally snapped as he perceived Maya's continued resistance as outright insubordination. Without warning, he stepped forward and reached for the Barrett rifle, intending to assert his authority through direct action. His movement was swift and decisive, reflecting his expectation that Maya would ultimately defer to his superior rank. Maya's reaction was instantaneous and born from combat reflexes honed during multiple deployments. She intercepted Blake's reach for her weapon with a firm but controlled movement, positioning herself between the Admiral and her rifle. Her action was purely defensive, designed to protect her equipment rather than challenge his authority. "Admiral, please stop," Maya said sharply, her voice carrying unmistakable steel. The physical intervention crossed a line that both participants recognized as significant. Around them, the crowd of observers fell silent as they witnessed an unprecedented confrontation between an enlisted Marine and a high-ranking naval officer. Blake was stunned by Maya's physical intervention. No enlisted person had ever dared to physically prevent him from taking any action he deemed appropriate. His military career had been built on unquestioned authority and immediate compliance from subordinates. Maya's defiance represented a challenge to the fundamental hierarchy that governed military life. The situation spiraled quickly as Blake's anger overrode his judgment. He grabbed for the Barrett rifle more aggressively, determined to establish his dominance over what he perceived as an insubordinate soldier who had forgotten her place in the military structure. His action was driven more by wounded pride than any practical need to examine the weapon. Maya's response was immediate and decisive. Her combat training kicked in as she perceived Blake's aggressive grab as a potential threat to both her weapon's integrity and her competition chances. She stepped back firmly, creating distance between the Admiral and her rifle while maintaining protective control over the precision instrument. "Sir, you are violating competition protocol and potentially damaging calibrated equipment," Maya stated clearly, her voice carrying across the now silent range. Her words were chosen carefully to emphasize the procedural violation rather than personal defiance, but the effect was equally challenging to Blake's authority. The confrontation had reached a point where both participants felt they could not back down without losing face. Blake saw Maya's resistance as unacceptable insubordination that threatened military discipline. Maya viewed his actions as a violation of weapon safety protocols that could compromise her competition performance and potentially create safety hazards. Captain Morrison realized that immediate intervention was necessary to prevent the situation from escalating into a formal military incident with serious consequences for all involved. He stepped between Maya and Admiral Blake, his hands raised, in a calming gesture while his mind raced to find a solution that would satisfy both parties. Other competitors watched in fascination and concern as the drama unfolded. Many sympathized with Maya's position, while recognizing the dangerous precedent of challenging superior officers. The incident threatened to overshadow the entire competition and create lasting tensions between different military branches. Marcus Chen felt compelled to support Maya despite the risks to his own military career. He had witnessed her exceptional skill and professionalism throughout the competition and believed her concerns about weapon integrity were entirely valid. However, speaking up could be interpreted as supporting insubordination against a flag officer. The next few moments would determine whether the confrontation could be resolved diplomatically or would escalate into a formal military incident with career-ending consequences for Maya. Admiral Blake faced a choice between asserting his authority through disciplinary action or finding a face-saving way to de-escalate the situation. Maya stood her ground, knowing that her military career hung in the balance, but unwilling to compromise, on principles that had kept her alive in combat zones. The Barrett rifle represented more than equipment to her. It symbolized the trust and precision that defined her identity as a warrior and marksman. The tension reached a breaking point as Admiral Blake made one final forceful attempt to assert his authority by grabbing for Maya's Barrett rifle. His movement was aggressive and determined, driven by wounded pride and the need to establish dominance in front of multiple witnesses. However, Maya's combat-honed reflexes responded faster than Blake anticipated. With fluid precision born from countless hours of training and real-world experience, Maya smoothly pulled her rifle away from Blake's reach while simultaneously creating defensive distance. Her movement was economical and professional, designed to protect her weapon without escalating the physical confrontation. The Barrett M82 remained secure in her grip throughout the maneuver. "Admiral, I cannot allow unauthorized handling of my weapon," Maya stated firmly, her voice carrying across the now silent range. Her words were respectful but unwavering, reflecting her commitment to both military protocol and weapon safety, principles that had been drilled into her since basic training. Blake's face turned purple, with rage as he realized that Maya had successfully prevented his access to the rifle. Never in his distinguished career had an enlisted person physically thwarted his actions, and the public nature of the incident made it even more humiliating. He felt his authority crumbling in front of representatives from all military branches. Captain Morrison stepped forward decisively, recognizing that the situation required immediate intervention to prevent further escalation. As the range safety officer and a neutral party, he possessed the authority to enforce competition regulations regardless of the participants' military ranks. "Admiral Blake, Sergeant Rodriguez is correct about competition protocol," Morrison announced clearly. "Regulation 347B explicitly prohibits unauthorized handling of competitors' personal weapons during sanctioned events. This rule exists to ensure fair competition and prevent equipment damage that could affect results." Blake spun toward Morrison, his anger now directed at what he perceived as conspiracy against his authority. The range safety officer's support for Maya's position suggested that the entire incident was orchestrated to embarrass him in front of his peers and subordinates. "Captain, you will not interfere with my examination of equipment under my jurisdiction," Blake commanded, his voice carrying barely controlled fury. However, his authority over naval personnel did not extend to Army officers running joint service competitions, creating a jurisdictional conflict he had not anticipated. Morrison remained calm but firm in his response. "Admiral, with respect, all competitors and equipment fall under competition authority during sanctioned events. This regulation applies equally to all participants regardless of rank or service branch. The integrity of the competition depends on consistent enforcement of these protocols." Maya watched the exchange with growing appreciation for Morrison's professional courage. Supporting an enlisted Marine against a flag officer required significant personal risk, but the captain's commitment to fair competition outweighed political considerations. His intervention provided legitimate cover for her weapon protection actions. The crowd of observers had grown larger as news of the confrontation spread throughout the competition area. Representatives from various military branches watched with intense interest as the drama unfolded between different service hierarchies and competing authorities. Blake realized that his position was becoming increasingly untenable as Morrison's regulatory authority trumped his military rank within the context of the competition. However, backing down now would represent a significant loss of face that could affect his standing within the naval hierarchy. "This matter is far from resolved," Blake announced ominously, his tone suggesting that formal disciplinary actions would follow the competition. His words were directed primarily at Maya, who had initiated the chain of events that led to his public embarrassment. Maya felt a chill at the Admiral's implied threat but remained committed to her principles. She had faced enemy fire in Afghanistan and survived multiple deployments through careful attention to weapon maintenance and safety protocols. Compromising those standards now would betray everything she had learned about surviving in dangerous situations. The immediate crisis passed as Blake stepped back from Maya's position, but the underlying tensions remained unresolved. Other competitors began returning their attention to the ongoing competition events, though many continued to glance toward Maya with a mixture of admiration and concern for her future. Morrison announced that competition activities would resume immediately, effectively ending the public confrontation while allowing all parties to save face. His diplomatic solution provided a temporary resolution that addressed immediate safety concerns without forcing either Blake or Maya into complete capitulation. As the range activities resumed, Maya felt the weight of her decision settling over her like a heavy blanket. She had successfully protected her weapon and maintained her competitive integrity, but the cost might prove to be her military career. Admiral Blake's influence extended far beyond this single competition. The Barrett rifle felt familiar and comforting in her hands as she prepared for the next shooting event. Regardless of political consequences, She knew that her grandfather would have approved of her stand for principle over convenience. Some things were worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed overwhelming. Marcus Chen approached quietly, offering subtle words of support while maintaining plausible deniability about his involvement. Other competitors also provided discreet encouragement, recognizing Maya's courage in standing up for professional standards despite enormous personal risk. The competition would continue, but everyone present understood that the real test had already occurred. During the confrontation between Maya and Admiral Blake, her willingness to defend her principles had earned respect from fellow warriors while potentially ending her military future. The final day of competition arrived with an electric atmosphere that had little to do with the shooting events and everything to do with the previous day's confrontation. Maya had spent a restless night considering the potential consequences of her actions, but morning brought renewed determination to finish what she had started by demonstrating her capabilities on the range. Admiral Blake appeared at the competition grounds wearing a grim expression that suggested the matter was far from settled in his mind. He positioned himself prominently in the observation area, making his presence known to all participants while maintaining a careful distance from Maya's shooting position. The ultimate challenge of the competition would test shooters' abilities. Under maximum stress conditions, 6 targets were positioned at varying distances from 400 to 1,200 meters, each requiring different ammunition loads and precise calculations for environmental factors. Competitors had to engage all targets within a strict time limit that forced rapid decision-making. Maya approached the final event with the calm focus that had carried her through combat situations where hesitation meant death. She methodically checked her Barrett rifle's action, verified her scope settings, and arranged her ammunition according to the targets she would engage. Her preparation routine was identical to procedures she had followed in Afghanistan. The first target stood at 400 meters, a distance that should have been routine for any qualified marksman. However, the pressure of final competition and recent events created mental distractions that could affect even experienced shooters. Maya settled into her prone position and began her breathing exercises to center her concentration. Her first shot struck the target's center ring with authority that announced her intentions for the final event. The Barrett's distinctive report echoed across the range as Maya smoothly worked the bolt action and prepared to engage the second target at 600 meters. Around her, other competitors fired their weapons with varying degrees of success. Admiral Blake watched through binoculars as Maya transitioned between targets with fluid efficiency that demonstrated genuine expertise. Despite his personal animosity toward her defiance, he possessed enough military experience to recognize exceptional marksmanship when he witnessed it. Her performance was undeniably impressive. The second target fell to Maya's precision as her bullet found its mark in the scoring rings. She immediately shifted position to engage the third target at 800 meters, making quick calculations for increased bullet drop and wind drift. Her movements were economical and practiced, wasting no motion or time. Target after target succumbed to Maya's methodical approach as she worked through the challenging sequence. Each shot demonstrated the countless hours of training and combat experience that had shaped her into an elite marksman. The Barrett rifle performed flawlessly, delivering precision that matched her shooting skills. With 5 targets successfully engaged, Maya prepared for the final and most challenging shot at 1,200 meters. The extreme range pushed both weapon and shooter capabilities to their limits, while time pressure threatened to force mistakes. She had less than 2 minutes remaining to complete the sequence. Maya's final shot seemed to hang in the air for an eternity before finding its mark in the target's center ring. The completion of her string drew applause from fellow competitors who recognized exceptional shooting, regardless of recent controversies. She had achieved perfect scores on all 6 targets under maximum pressure conditions. The final results confirmed what observers had witnessed throughout the 3-day competition. Maya had won the overall championship with scores that set new records for several events. Her consistency across diverse challenges demonstrated mastery that transcended any single shooting discipline. Admiral Blake found himself in an uncomfortable position as he witnessed Maya's dominant performance. Her undeniable skill challenged his preconceptions about women in combat roles, while her defiance continued to anger him. The contradiction created cognitive dissonance that he struggled to resolve. During the awards ceremony, Maya received recognition for her outstanding marksmanship, while maintaining dignified composure despite uncertain consequences, awaiting her return to regular duty. Her achievement represented validation of years of dedicated training and professional commitment to excellence. However, the celebration was muted by awareness that Admiral Blake's influence could still destroy her military career through administrative channels beyond the competition's scope. Military justice operated through different rules than shooting competitions, and rank typically prevailed over performance in disciplinary matters. In the weeks following the competition, an unexpected development changed the trajectory of Maya's situation. Media coverage of her championship performance had attracted attention from senior military leaders who investigated the circumstances surrounding her confrontation with Admiral Blake. The investigation revealed that Maya had acted entirely within competition regulations and military weapon safety protocols when she protected her Barrett rifle from unauthorized handling. Captain Morrison's testimony supported her actions as necessary and appropriate under the circumstances. Furthermore, Maya's combat record and competition performance earned support from influential military leaders who recognized her value as both a warrior and ambassador for military excellence. Her principled stand had demonstrated exactly the kind of integrity and professionalism that the modern military needed to cultivate. Admiral Blake found his position increasingly untenable as higher authorities reviewed the incident. His attempt to discipline Maya for following proper protocols while defending her own championship performance reflected poorly on his judgment and leadership capabilities. The final resolution surprised everyone involved. Maya received commendation for her competition victory and exemplary conduct under pressure, while Admiral Blake faced counseling about appropriate behavior during joint service events. The incident became a teaching moment about respecting professional expertise regardless of gender or rank differences. Maya returned to her unit with enhanced reputation and clear vindication of her actions during the competition. Her Barrett rifle remained her trusted companion, its precision unmarred by the controversy that had threatened to overshadow her achievement. She had proven that sometimes standing your ground was worth the risk.